Hey everyone. So I know this sounds crazy, and honestly, if someone told me this a year ago, I'd probably laugh them out of the room. I mean, even saying it out loud feels surreal, like I'm narrating a Hollywood script rather than recounting something that actually happened to me. But here we are. My life, which was once so predictable, so utterly mundane, has been irrevocably altered by an experience that defies every logical explanation I ever held dear. And it all started with ancient Sumerian texts, a topic I thought I knew inside and out. I was just a history buff, always digging into old myths, ancient civilizations, especially Sumer. The Anunnaki always fascinated me, but for me, they were just a story, a captivating myth woven into the fabric of human antiquity. I spent countless hours poring over translations, scrutinizing cuneiform tablets, and debating the interpretations with fellow enthusiasts online. My apartment was a shrine to ancient knowledge, crammed with books on archaeology, mythology, and esoteric theories. My routine was clockwork. Wake up, go to my soul-crushing but stable data entry job, come home, dive into the past, rinse and repeat. It was comforting, familiar, and utterly devoid of anything truly extraordinary. The most exciting thing that usually happened was finding a new translation of a rare text, or successfully deciphering a particularly tricky passage. Little did I know, the universe had a far more elaborate research project in mind for me. Then things started getting weird. Not like lost my keys weird, or forgot my coffee weird. This was saw the same symbol 3 times in one day, weird, but amplified. It began subtly. A recurring dream, night after night, always the same. A vast, star-filled sky, but with constellations I didn't recognize, and a massive, shimmering object descending towards a primitive Earth. I'd wake up with a jolt. The image burned into my mind, a strange sense of anticipation lingering in the air. Then, the symbols. I'd be walking down the street, and there it would be, etched into a crumbling old wall. Or I'd open a book, and a forgotten bookmark would fall out, bearing the exact same intricate design. A pattern that resembled something I'd seen in a Sumerian text, but subtly different, pulsing with an almost alien energy. I started feeling watched, not in a paranoid way, but like someone was observing my every move, waiting for something. My cat, usually aloof, would sometimes stare intently at empty corners of the room, her ears twitching, as if listening to an inaudible conversation. It was unsettling, but my rational mind kept trying to find mundane explanations. Coincidence, fatigue, an overactive imagination fueled by too much ancient history. The encounter's origin was nothing like the sci-fi movies or the wild stories you hear about UFO sightings. It wasn't a flashing light in the sky, no beam of pure energy, no classic little green men. It was subtler, far more insidious, and yet profoundly personal. It started as a voice, not in my ears, but in my head. Clear as day, distinct from my own thoughts, yet resonating with an authority that left no room for doubt. It wasn't a whisper, nor a shout. It was a presence, a knowing. It started during one of my late-night research sessions. I was studying a particularly obscure tablet, one that hinted at cosmic visitors. Suddenly the voice. It spoke without sound, directly into my consciousness, a cascade of information and sensation that bypassed my auditory processing entirely. It was like a thought that wasn't mine, yet I understood it perfectly. The voice told me it had something to show me, something important. It mentioned Sumerian texts, not the ones I knew, but ones that held a different story, a deeper truth. My heart nearly stopped. All those years of dedicated research, all those late nights, suddenly felt like they were leading to this very moment. The voice, which I later came to understand as belonging to an entity I now refer to as Kale, wasn't demanding. It was an invitation, a proposition. It spoke of a truth hidden from humanity, a narrative deliberately obscured, and that I, with my passion for ancient history, was uniquely positioned to receive it. It wasn't a choice, not really. It felt like destiny. The sheer weight of the offer, the promise of unraveling mysteries that have plagued humanity for millennia, was too compelling to ignore. Kyle promised to reveal what really happened after the Anunnaki arrived on Earth. Not the myths, not the filtered narratives, but the unvarnished, unedited truth, as recorded in texts that have never been seen by human eyes, or at least not understood by them. I was skeptical, of course. My rational mind screamed for caution, for proof. But the feeling, the sheer knowing, that emanated from this presence was undeniable. It felt more real than anything I had ever experienced. I cautiously accepted. What else could I do? Curiosity, that insatiable hunger for knowledge, had always been my driving force. And now, the ultimate knowledge was being offered to me. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and frankly, a little insane. You want to know what I saw? You want to know what they showed me? The first meeting with Kale wasn't a conventional one. There was no spaceship, no dramatic landing, no shimmering portal in my living room. It was far more pervasive, an experience that transcended physical space. Kyle manifested not as a gray alien with big eyes or a reptilian overlord, as some theories suggest. It was more like pure energy, a shimmering, sentient field of light that pulsed with an intelligence almost beyond comprehension. But it took a form I could understand, something almost human, but not quite. Imagine a being woven from starlight and ancient wisdom, its features fluid, shifting, yet conveying a profound sense of calm and authority. It communicated through a direct transfer of thought, a symphony of concepts and images that flooded my consciousness, bypassing the clumsy filters of language. It was overwhelming, yet strangely comforting, like discovering a part of my own mind I never knew existed. Kyle told me its people had been watching us for a very, very long time. Since before written history, before the first human carved a symbol into a cave wall. They were observers, guardians of cosmic balance, their civilization having traversed countless millennia, witnessing the rise and fall of species across galaxies. Their connection to Earth's past, Kale explained, was not one of direct intervention in recent history, but of ancient lineage, a distant kinship with the very forces that shaped our solar system. They had witnessed the Anunnaki's arrival, their intentions, and the unfolding drama that followed. Kyle's purpose, it conveyed, was not to judge, but to inform, to reveal the unadulterated truth that had been buried under layers of myth, misinterpretation, and deliberate obfuscation. The Sumerian tablets, Kale emphasized, weren't just myths or primitive religious texts. They were records. Incredibly detailed, meticulously kept records of events, technologies, and interactions that shaped early human civilization. But we were reading them wrong. Or rather, we were only getting part of the story, the heavily edited, human-centric version. Kyle explained that the true meaning lay not just in the cuneiform symbols themselves, but in the subtle nuances of their placement, the vibrational frequencies encoded within the clay, and the contextual knowledge that only an ancient observer could provide. They were like complex, multi-layered data files, and humanity, for millennia, had only been able to access the surface-level text, missing the embedded code, the subroutines of truth. The translation process was unlike anything I could have imagined. It wasn't like reading a book or even learning a new language in the traditional sense. Kyle showed me how to feel the language, how to understand the symbols beyond their literal meaning. It was an immersive experience, a direct download of information and context into my mind. I didn't just read about events, I witnessed them. I didn't just learn about the Anunnaki. I felt their presence, their motivations, their advanced understanding of the cosmos. Kyle acted as a conduit, a translator of consciousness, allowing me to perceive the world through the lens of those who recorded history and those who observed it from afar. It was like I was there, a silent observer in the Sumerian past, witnessing it all unfold with a clarity that surpassed any historical account. Kyle began by showing me the state of Earth before the Anunnaki's arrival. It was a pristine, unblemished world, vibrant with life, its ecosystems in perfect harmony. Not like what we imagine, scarred by millennia of human activity, there was a peace, a balance we've long forgotten. Early, uncorrupted humanoids roamed the land, living in symbiotic relationship with nature, their consciousnesses intertwined with the planet itself. They possessed an innate understanding of energy, of connection, a subtle awareness that Kale described as a nascent form of higher consciousness. Their lives were simple, yet rich, guided by instinct and an intrinsic respect for all living things. There was no concept of ownership, no struggle for resources, only an effortless flow of existence. Then, the texts showed ships, not chariots of fire, as later myths would distort them, but sleek, metallic vessels, crafted with an elegance far beyond anything Earth had ever produced. They descended from the heavens, not as divine chariots, but as advanced spacecraft. Beings of immense knowledge, yes, but not omnipotent, disembarking from these craft. They came for something specific. The texts revealed, not as conquerors, but as explorers, resource prospectors from a distant star system. Their arrival was met with a mix of curiosity and awe from the native inhabitants, who, despite their primitive understanding of technology, recognized a profound intelligence in these visitors. The first interactions were curious. They observed us. We observed them. There was no worship, not yet. The Anunnaki, tall and imposing, with features that were distinctly humanoid, but with an undeniable alien grace, studied the nascent humanoids with scientific detachment. They set up advanced geological survey equipment, not for gold, as popular theories suggest, but for something far more complex, a rare element or energetic resonance unique to Earth's core, crucial for their own planetary survival or a larger cosmic endeavor. They were fascinated by the unique bioenergetic signature of Earth and its inhabitants. They saw potential, a raw, untapped resource, not of minerals, but of consciousness. But something changed. Their initial mission, one of pure resource acquisition and scientific observation, shifted. The texts started to show a different agenda emerging, a subtle but significant deviation from their original purpose. The Anunnaki discovered something about Earth, or about humanity, that altered their entire strategy. The primitive humanoids, with their innate connection to the planet's energy grid and their rapidly evolving consciousness, presented an unforeseen opportunity. An opportunity to not just extract resources, but to cultivate something far more valuable. So, what do you think they were really looking for? And why did their mission change so drastically from mere exploration to something far more intricate and manipulative? The answers were about to unfold, revealing a history far more complex and disturbing than any myth had ever dared to suggest. The texts now revealed the Anunnaki's growing influence on early humanity, an influence that rapidly transcended simple observation and resource gathering. It was no longer just about teaching. It was about actively shaping society, molding it to fit their evolving agenda. They introduced agriculture, not as a benevolent gift, but as a means to settle nomadic tribes, to create a stable workforce. They brought writing, not just for communication, but for record-keeping, for laws, for control. Social structures, hierarchies, and divisions of labor emerged under their guidance, transforming loosely organized groups into complex, manageable societies. They brought knowledge, yes, but they also brought order. And with order came control. The once free-roaming humanoids, connected to the earth, slowly became cogs in a larger engineered machine. The most profound revelation from these hidden texts concerned the creation of humanity. The narratives I had studied previously spoke of the Anunnaki creating humans as slaves, laborers for their minds. But Kale showed a more nuanced and perhaps more disturbing truth. The texts don't talk about creating humans from scratch, for the indigenous humanoids were already present. Instead, they talk about upgrading, about unlocking potential for a specific purpose. This wasn't a divine act of creation, but a sophisticated act of genetic manipulation. The Anunnaki, with their advanced understanding of genetics and biology, saw the raw potential in the existing humanoids. They saw a species whose DNA held dormant codes, whose consciousness could be accelerated and directed. This was where the story of Adam and Eve of the Garden of Eden got a new chilling twist. It wasn't about a rib or a forbidden fruit in the literal sense, but about a targeted genetic intervention, a deliberate modification to enhance certain traits and suppress others, essentially fast-tracking evolution to suit their needs. Kyle explained that this genetic alteration was indeed for mining resources, specifically gold, but for a reason far beyond simple wealth or adornment. The gold wasn't just for jewelry. It was for something critical to their own survival, or for a threat far beyond Earth. The texts describe the Anunnaki's home planet, Nibiru, facing atmospheric degradation, a slow decay that threatened its very existence. Gold, in a finely powdered monoatomic state, possessed unique properties that could stabilize Nibiru's atmosphere, acting as a shield against cosmic radiation. This was not a luxury, it was an existential necessity. But beyond that, Kale hinted at a larger cosmic project. The gold, combined with the unique bioenergetic signature of Earth and the newly enhanced human consciousness, was part of an intricate energy grid, a vast network designed to harness and transmit specific frequencies across vast interstellar distances, perhaps for planetary defense against an unknown cosmic threat, or for a grand experiment in consciousness expansion. Under the Anunnaki's direct guidance, the rapid development of Sumerian civilization was nothing short of astonishing. The texts vividly described the building of cities, not through brute force alone, but through advanced engineering principles, harnessing geological energies and sophisticated tools that allowed for monumental construction with relative ease. The ziggurats, often seen as mere temples or observatories, were far more. They weren't just religious structures, they were complex communication hubs, energy conductors, and even atmospheric processors. The texts showed how they worked. Intricate diagrams of crystal lattices and resonant chambers, designed to harness Earth's electromagnetic field and channel it for various purposes, including weather modification and interdimensional communication. Complex irrigation systems, far more advanced than historical records suggest, transformed arid lands into fertile fields, ensuring a steady supply of food for the growing human population, a population now entirely dependent on the Anunnaki's infrastructure. It was during this period of rapid advancement that the Anunnaki began to be perceived as gods. The texts showed how, over time, their advanced technology, their ability to control natural phenomena, heal wounds with unknown instruments, and build structures that defied gravity, became indistinguishable from magic in the eyes of early humans. This wasn't necessarily their initial intention. They presented themselves as teachers, guides, but the sheer disparity in their capabilities inevitably led to deification. When you can control the weather, heal wounds instantly, and build things that defy all known physics, God becomes an easy title to accept, a convenient power structure that solidified their authority. The Anunnaki didn't demand worship at first, but they certainly didn't discourage it either. It served their purpose of control and obedience perfectly. However, the text also revealed something crucial. It wasn't a united front. There were divisions and conflicts among the Anunnaki themselves. Different factions emerged, each with their own agendas regarding humanity and Earth. This internal strife led to what we now recognize as early human myths of warring gods. The narratives of Enki and Enlil, for example, were not merely symbolic tales of creation and destruction, but literal accounts of power struggles, ideological clashes, and even physical confrontations between these advanced beings. The texts showed arguments, power struggles, betrayals. It was like a family drama, but with planetary stakes and humanity caught in the middle, often collateral damage in their cosmic disputes. One faction might advocate for humanity's advancement, seeing them as potential allies, while another saw them merely as tools to be exploited and controlled. Kael, with its profound insight, pointed out subtle clues embedded within the texts, revealing a deeper, more sinister plan beginning to unfold. The initial benevolence, the seemingly helpful guidance, started to fray around the edges. There was a hidden motive, a long game being played. The genetic modifications, the accelerated development, the engineered dependency. It all pointed to a strategy far more elaborate than mere resource extraction. Humanity wasn't just being used for labor. They were being cultivated, their potential carefully managed, their consciousness subtly influenced to serve a purpose far beyond their own understanding. The text suggested a form of long-term manipulation, a subtle programming woven into the fabric of human society and even our very DNA. The texts even alluded to the first warnings, whispers of dissent that began to emerge. Not everyone was fooled. Some humans, especially those who retained a stronger connection to the natural world and their innate intuition, started to question the Anunnaki's true intentions. They sensed the subtle shift, the growing imbalance. More surprisingly, even some Anunnaki began to see the cracks in the facade, questioning the ethics of their brethren's actions. These renegade Anunnaki, or those who simply disagreed with the increasingly manipulative tactics, subtly tried to warn humanity, or at least mitigate the more egregious forms of control. These were the mythical figures who, against the wishes of the dominant faction, would impart forbidden knowledge or offer succor to the beleaguered humans. What was this hidden agenda? And what happened when humanity started to realize they weren't just pawns in a cosmic game, but entities whose very essence was being harvested and directed for purposes they couldn't possibly comprehend? The answers, Kael promised, would challenge everything I thought I knew about human history and our place in the universe. The honeymoon phase was undeniably over. The texts detailed how human resentment and fear of the Anunnaki began to fester, slowly at first, like a creeping vine, then erupting into open defiance. The initial awe, the reverence for these sky gods, had curdled into a bitter servitude. The gods, once seen as benevolent bringers of civilization, became increasingly demanding, their decrees more stringent, their presence more oppressive. The texts showed growing unrest, quiet protests turning into open rebellion. Though often brutally suppressed, humans now accustomed to the comforts and organization provided by the Anunnaki found themselves trapped in a system that offered security at the cost of freedom. The narrative shifted from one of grateful pupils to one of exploited workers, their lives dictated by the whims of their celestial overseers. The Anunnaki's response to this burgeoning discontent was sophisticated and chillingly effective. They didn't always resort to brute force, though that was certainly an option when needed. Their methods of control and suppression were far more insidious, rooted in psychological manipulation, pervasive propaganda, and even subtle genetic tweaking to ensure obedience. The texts revealed how the Anunnaki skillfully crafted narratives, positioning themselves as indispensable saviors, protectors against chaos and external threats, real or imagined. They fostered divisions among human tribes, preventing unified resistance. They used fear, promising dire consequences for disobedience, and they used promises of comfort and prosperity for loyalty. More disturbingly, Kyle explained how the Anunnaki had continued to subtly influence human biology, making obedience more ingrained, critical thought more difficult, and dependence on their systems a fundamental aspect of the human condition. They didn't just smash things, they engineered conformity. One of the most shocking revelations from these texts concerned the true nature of the Great Flood. It wasn't a divine punishment for humanity's wickedness, nor a random act of nature. It was an intentional event, orchestrated by a faction of the Anunnaki to reset humanity, or more precisely, to eliminate a perceived threat. The texts painted a picture of a world teetering on the brink of an environmental catastrophe, perhaps exacerbated by Anunnaki mining operations, or a celestial alignment that brought immense tidal forces. But the decision to allow, even facilitate, the cataclysm was deliberate. It was a calculated move by the dominant Anunnaki faction, led by Enlil, to wipe the slate clean, to rid themselves of a rapidly growing, increasingly rebellious human population that was becoming too difficult to control. It was a way to get rid of a problem they couldn't control, to start anew with a more compliant, less numerous populace. The texts shed new, poignant light on the classic Anunnaki figures, Enki and Enlil, portraying their conflict as central to the flood narrative. Enlil, the stern, authoritarian leader, saw humanity as a failed experiment, too loud, too numerous, too disobedient, and championed their annihilation. He viewed the flood as a necessary purge. But Enki, the geneticist, the creator of the upgraded humans, was depicted as a more sympathetic figure. He argued against the destruction, seeing potential and value in his creations. The texts showed Enki's desperate attempts to warn a select few, to provide them with the knowledge and means to survive the impending deluge. He tried to warn us, providing blueprints for an ark, teaching crucial survival skills. Enlil wanted to let us drown. The texts showed their bitter rivalry, playing out with our lives as the stakes, a cosmic chess match where humanity was merely a pawn. Despite the overwhelming power of the Anunnaki, the texts detailed the emergence of human resistance movements. These were not always large-scale armies, but often small, clandestine groups, aided by renegade Anunnaki, or even other extraterrestrial factions who opposed Enlil's harsh policies. These acts of defiance, often hidden in later myths as heroic tales of demigods and champions, were vital sparks of rebellion. They fought back, not with advanced weaponry, but with cunning, with resilience, and with an unwavering belief in their own right to self-determination. Not all the Anunnaki were on the same side, and these internal divisions provided crucial opportunities for humanity to resist. These were the true heroes, humans who refused to be controlled, who kept the flame of freedom alive against impossible odds. The concept of a war in heaven wasn't just a metaphor. The texts described actual battles, not just metaphorical ones, but devastating conflicts fought on Earth. These skirmishes were between Anunnaki factions with opposing views, or even between the Anunnaki and other alien species who saw their manipulation of Earth as a violation of cosmic law. The texts spoke of advanced weaponry, beams of energy, sonic disruptors, and aerial combat that reshaped landscapes and left behind scorched Earth. These were real wars, fought on our planet, with weapons we can barely imagine, the consequences of which were catastrophic for the planet and its nascent civilizations. The scars of these ancient conflicts, Kale explained, are still detectable in geological anomalies and unexplained ruins across the globe. The texts then explained why the Anunnaki eventually left, or at least drastically reduced their direct involvement. It wasn't a voluntary departure, a benevolent decision to step back. Something forced their hand. It was a combination of factors: the escalating internal conflicts that weakened their dominance, the growing and increasingly organized human resistance, and perhaps most significantly, external threats. The texts hinted at the arrival of other, even more powerful cosmic entities, or a shift in galactic politics that made their continued direct presence on Earth untenable. Something big, something beyond humanity's comprehension, compelled them to retreat, to change their strategy from overt control to something far more subtle. Even after their physical departure, the texts showed how the Anunnaki left behind intricate systems of control. They instilled belief systems that perpetuated their divine image, ensuring continued reverence and obedience. They established societal structures, political hierarchies, and economic models that favored manipulation and control. And most profoundly, they left behind genetic predispositions, subtle alterations in human DNA that continued to influence our behavior, our thoughts, and our susceptibility to authority. These programs, Kale explained, continued to run in the background, shaping our world and guiding human development along a predetermined path. They left, but their influence remained, a silent hand guiding the course of human history. Could we still be living under their influence? What if everything we've been taught about our origins, our history, our societal norms is just part of their plan? A carefully constructed illusion designed to keep us compliant and unaware of our true potential. The questions lingered, heavy and unsettling, as Kale prepared to reveal the next layer of this astonishing truth. The weight of Kale's revelations pressed down on me, each word a hammer blow against the edifice of my understanding. But the alien being wasn't finished. It revealed that the Sumerian texts, those ancient clay tablets, painstakingly cataloged and translated by human scholars, were only a fraction of the story. Not all of them were found or understood in their true context. There were hidden chambers, not always physical, but sometimes energetic, containing texts that had been deliberately concealed or simply beyond the interpretive capabilities of our current linguistic and conceptual frameworks. There were forgotten languages, subtle nuances in cuneiform that held entirely different meanings when viewed through Kale's lens of cosmic understanding. And there were specific interpretations, pathways of thought, that held the key to understanding the Anunnaki's true endgame, a purpose far more intricate and disturbing than mere resource extraction or control. The texts I saw weren't the ones in museums, Kale emphasized, guiding my awareness to energetic imprints, to patterns of information flowing through the very fabric of reality. Kale showed me the hidden ones, the ones that were either buried deep beneath the earth, encoded in sacred sites, or deliberately ignored by those who sought to maintain the prevailing narrative. These hidden texts unveiled humanity's ultimate role in the Anunnaki's grand scheme. It was not just about labor or resources, not merely about gold for Nibiru's atmosphere. It was about something far more profound, something involving consciousness, energy, and a cosmic experiment of unimaginable scale. We weren't just miners. We were something else entirely. Something they needed for a much bigger project. Something involving our very essence, our unique biospiritual signature. The texts described humanity as living energy conduits, capable of generating, processing, and transmitting specific frequencies of consciousness. Our emotions, our thoughts, our very life force. These were the true resources, harvested and directed for purposes that stretched across galaxies. We were, in essence, a sophisticated, self-replicating energy farm, meticulously cultivated and managed. The texts further hinted at the Anunnaki's ability to traverse dimensions and manipulate timelines. This wasn't merely advanced technology, it was a mastery of reality itself. This explained their seemingly supernatural abilities, their instantaneous appearances, their profound knowledge of future events, and their long-term planning that spanned millennia. They weren't just from another planet. They understood dimensions, time itself, not as a linear progression, but as a malleable construct. That's how they pulled off what they did, orchestrating events across vast stretches of human history, planting seeds of influence that would blossom thousands of years later. They could see the potential futures, and they guided humanity down the paths most beneficial to their ultimate goals, subtly nudging us away from any trajectory that threatened their control. Kale's tone became more urgent, its energetic presence vibrating with a new intensity. This hidden knowledge, it explained, was not merely historical curiosity. It was critical for humanity's future. The Anunnaki's plans were not fully concluded. Their influence, though less overt, had never truly waned, and their agenda could return or manifest in new, even more insidious ways. Kyle wasn't just showing me history, it was a warning. The game isn't over. It has simply entered a new, more subtle phase. The systems they put in place, the genetic predispositions they engineered, continue to operate, guiding humanity down a predetermined path of limited potential and perpetual subservience. The texts described a specific event, a pivotal moment, that led to the Anunnaki's ultimate decision to retreat from direct governance and change tactics. This wasn't a sudden, unified decision, but a culmination of factors. It was a human uprising, not necessarily a physical war, but a surge of collective consciousness, a realization of their own power that began to disrupt the Anunnaki's energy harvesting. It was an intervention from another alien race, perhaps allies of Kale's own people, who saw the Anunnaki's manipulation as a violation of cosmic ethics. Or it was a cosmic event, a shift in galactic energies that made Earth a less hospitable environment for their direct presence, forcing them to operate from the shadows. Something happened that made them change their strategy. The text pointed to a particular moment, a crucial choice that caused a fracture in their meticulously planned control. Crucially, the texts also showed how some humans, even under immense control, managed to retain their free will and plant the seeds of true independence. These were the outliers, the ones whose consciousness couldn't be fully contained, whose spirit refused to be broken. They were the mystics, the shamans, the philosophers who intuitively understood the deception and sought to reestablish humanity's connection to its true, unadulterated source. This was the source of humanity's resilience, the stubborn spark of defiance that even the Anunnaki could not extinguish. They kept hope alive, kept the true spark of freedom burning, passing down fragmented knowledge through oral traditions, symbols, and encoded myths, waiting for a time when humanity would be ready to receive it. And then, Kale revealed a critical betrayal within the Anunnaki ranks, or an unexpected alliance forged between some Anunnaki and humanity. This wasn't a universal defection, but a significant crack in their unified front. Some Anunnaki, perhaps those who had always opposed Enlil's harsh methods, or those who recognized the long-term futility and karmic repercussions of their actions, chose to side with humanity. They provided crucial information, subtly undermined their brethren's plans, or even actively protected certain human lineages. This was the true turning point in the conflict, the moment when the balance of power began to shift. There was a betrayal, or an unlikely alliance, something that gave us a fighting chance, a pathway to reclaim our sovereignty. The texts, Kale emphasized, didn't just dwell on the past. They offered clues, a veritable roadmap for how humanity could reclaim its true heritage and break free from residual Anunnaki influence. They spoke of unlocking dormant DNA, of reactivating suppressed abilities, of reconnecting with the universal consciousness that had been severed. The texts aren't just about what happened. They're a guide, a way out, a blueprint for our collective liberation. They spoke of a coming age, a time of awakening, when humanity would remember its true nature and reclaim its rightful place in the cosmos. So, what did these hidden texts say about our future? And what do we need to do to truly become free, to shed the millennia of control and step into our inherent power? The questions hung in the air, charged with an urgency that resonated deep within my soul. The questions lingered, heavy and unsettling, as Cal prepared to reveal the next layer of this astonishing truth. It explained that the Anunnaki's influence never truly ended. They merely shifted tactics, operating from the shadows, manipulating world events, and guiding humanity's development in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. They didn't leave. They just went underground, or rather, they built sophisticated systems that would do their work for them. These systems were designed to perpetuate their control without their direct physical presence, becoming embedded in the very fabric of human civilization. Kyle described how they established institutions, ideologies, and even technological pathways that ensured humanity would continue to serve their long-term agenda, unknowingly perpetuating their ancient design. Suddenly, all those conspiracy theories I'd dismissed as fringe ideas began to snap into focus. The banking systems, the political structures, the media, the very educational frameworks that shaped our minds. It was all part of a larger, incredibly intricate design. The texts, when viewed through Kale's interpretive lens, revealed how the Anunnaki had engineered global economic models that concentrated wealth and power, fostering dependency and competition rather than collaboration. They showed how political systems were subtly influenced to maintain divisions, to prevent unified human action, and to ensure that leaders served not the people, but the hidden agenda. Even the narratives propagated through media and religious institutions were, in essence, carefully crafted programs designed to keep humanity focused on external authority rather than internal power. It was a revelation that turned my understanding of reality on its head, exposing the puppet strings behind the scenes of history. But the texts offered more than just a bleak assessment of control. They revealed that a key aspect of humanity's liberation lay in a spiritual awakening, in reconnecting with our true essence and innate abilities that were suppressed by the Anunnaki. The texts said, our greatest weapon wasn't technology or brute force, but our consciousness itself. Our ability to connect to something beyond this physical realm, to tap into the universal source of creation, was our inherent power. The Anunnaki, Kale explained, had worked tirelessly to sever this connection, to keep us tethered to the material, to fear, and to division, because a spiritually awakened humanity would be impossible to control. The path to freedom, therefore, was not an external battle, but an internal journey of remembering who we truly are. Kyle emphasized that the universe operates on a principle of balance. The Anunnaki's actions, their millennia of manipulation and exploitation, had created a profound imbalance, a distortion in the natural order of cosmic evolution. Now, forces were converging to restore it. This wasn't merely a philosophical concept. It was a cosmic law, as fundamental as gravity. This rebalancing, the text indicated, could involve other alien races, entities who operated within these cosmic laws and sought to uphold universal harmony. It could also involve cosmic energies, cyclical shifts in galactic alignments, or even a natural evolutionary surge within humanity itself. A collective awakening that was part of a larger universal rhythm. The universe demands balance, and what the Anunnaki did, it threw everything out of whack. Now, things are correcting, and humanity is at the epicenter of this correction. The texts hinted at a form of cosmic justice, or karmic retribution for the Anunnaki's actions. This wasn't necessarily vengeance in the human sense, but a natural consequence of their interference with the free will and evolutionary path of another species. Kyle explained that in the vast interconnected web of existence, every action creates a ripple, and those ripples eventually return to their source. For the Anunnaki, their actions had generated an immense karmic debt, and the universe was now calling for its repayment. It's not about revenge, it's about cosmic law. What goes around comes around, even for gods. Their ultimate fate, the texts suggested, was not to be destroyed, but to face the consequences of their choices, to learn the lessons they had imposed on others. Crucially, the texts revealed that humanity plays a pivotal role in this cosmic rebalancing. We are not just victims waiting to be saved. We are active participants in our own liberation and the restoration of universal harmony. Our unique genetic makeup, our capacity for profound empathy, creativity, and spiritual growth makes us indispensable to this process. We have a part to play, a big one. Our collective consciousness, once fragmented and suppressed, holds the key to tipping the scales. By awakening to our true nature and reclaiming our inherent power, we become agents of change, not just for ourselves, but for the wider cosmos. Kyle then introduced a mind-bending concept, the idea of time loops or parallel realities. It suggested that humanity has faced similar challenges before, perhaps in other cycles of existence or in alternate timelines. This isn't the first time this has happened. And our choices now, Kale stressed, they echo across realities. Every decision we make, every step we take towards awakening resonates not just in our current timeline, but potentially influences countless others. This added an immense weight to the present moment, highlighting the profound significance of our current trajectory and the choices we make as a species. Our collective consciousness is not just shaping our future, but potentially shaping the fate of multiple realities. Armed with this overwhelming knowledge, a profound sense of responsibility settled upon me. I couldn't keep this to myself. It's too important. You need to know. The purpose of this entire encounter, of Kale's guidance through these ancient, hidden texts, was not just for my personal enlightenment, but for the collective awakening of humanity. The call to action was clear. I had to share what I had learned, to be a conduit for this critical information, to ignite the spark of remembrance in others. This video, this message, is not just a story. It's a desperate plea, a beacon of hope, and a warning. So how do we break free from this ancient control? And what happens if we don't? The future of humanity, and perhaps even beyond, hinges on the answers to these questions. The questions lingered, heavy and unsettling, as Kale prepared to reveal the next layer of this astonishing truth. It explained that the Anunnaki's influence never truly ended. They merely shifted tactics, operating from the shadows, manipulating world events, and guiding humanity's development in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. They didn't leave. They just went underground, or rather, they built sophisticated systems that would do their work for them. These systems were designed to perpetuate their control without their direct physical presence, becoming embedded in the very fabric of human civilization. Kyle described how they established institutions, ideologies, and even technological pathways that ensured humanity would continue to serve their long-term agenda, unknowingly perpetuating their ancient design. Suddenly, all those conspiracy theories I'd dismissed as fringe ideas began to snap into focus. The banking systems, the political structures, the media, the very educational frameworks that shaped our minds. It was all part of a larger, incredibly intricate design. The texts, when viewed through Kale's interpretive lens, revealed how the Anunnaki had engineered global economic models that concentrated wealth and power, fostering dependency and competition rather than collaboration. They showed how political systems were subtly influenced to maintain divisions, to prevent unified human action, and to ensure that leaders served not the people, but the hidden agenda. Even the narratives propagated through media and religious institutions were, in essence, carefully crafted programs designed to keep humanity focused on external authority rather than internal power. It was a revelation that turned my understanding of reality on its head, exposing the puppet strings behind the scenes of history. But the texts offered more than just a bleak assessment of control. They revealed that a key aspect of humanity's liberation lay in a spiritual awakening, in reconnecting with our true essence and innate abilities that were suppressed by the Anunnaki. The texts said our greatest weapon wasn't technology or brute force, but our consciousness itself, our ability to connect to something beyond this physical realm, to tap into the universal source of creation, was our inherent power. The Anunnaki, Kale explained, had worked tirelessly to sever this connection, to keep us tethered to the material, to fear, and to division, because a spiritually awakened humanity would be impossible to control. The path to freedom, therefore, was not an external battle, but an internal journey of remembering who we truly are. Kyle emphasized that the universe operates on a principle of balance. The Anunnaki's actions, their millennia of manipulation and exploitation, had created a profound imbalance, a distortion in the natural order of cosmic evolution. Now, forces were converging to restore it. This wasn't merely a philosophical concept. It was a cosmic law, as fundamental as gravity. This rebalancing, the texts indicated, could involve other alien races, entities who operated within these cosmic laws and sought to uphold universal harmony. It could also involve cosmic energies, cyclical shifts in galactic alignments, or even a natural evolutionary surge within humanity itself, a collective awakening that was part of a larger universal rhythm. The universe demands balance, and what the Anunnaki did, it threw everything out of whack. Now, things are correcting, and humanity is at the epicenter of this correction. The texts hinted at a form of cosmic justice or karmic retribution for the Anunnaki's actions. This wasn't necessarily vengeance in the human sense, but a natural consequence of their interference with the free will and evolutionary path of another species. Kale explained that in the vast interconnected web of existence, every action creates a ripple, and those ripples eventually return to their source. For the Anunnaki, their actions had generated an immense karmic debt, and the universe was now calling for its repayment. It's not about revenge. It's about cosmic law. What goes around comes around even for gods. Their ultimate fate, the texts suggested, was not to be destroyed, but to face the consequences of their choices, to learn the lessons they had imposed on others. Crucially, the texts revealed that humanity plays a pivotal role in this cosmic rebalancing. We are not just victims waiting to be saved. We are active participants in our own liberation and the restoration of universal harmony. Our unique genetic makeup, our capacity for profound empathy, creativity, and spiritual growth makes us indispensable to this process. We have a part to play, a big one. Our collective consciousness, once fragmented and suppressed, holds the key to tipping the scales. By awakening to our true nature and reclaiming our inherent power, we become agents of change, not just for ourselves, but for the wider cosmos. Kyle then introduced a mind-bending concept, the idea of time loops or parallel realities. It suggested that humanity has faced similar challenges before, perhaps in other cycles of existence or in alternate timelines. This isn't the first time this has happened. And our choices now, Kale stressed, they echo across realities. Every decision we make, every step we take towards awakening, resonates not just in our current timeline, but potentially influences countless others. This added an immense weight to the present moment, highlighting the profound significance of our current trajectory and the choices we make as a species. Our collective consciousness is not just shaping our future, but potentially shaping the fate of multiple realities. Armed with this overwhelming knowledge, a profound sense of responsibility settled upon me. I couldn't keep this to myself. It's too important. You need to know. The purpose of this entire encounter, of Kale's guidance through these ancient hidden texts, was not just for my personal enlightenment, but for the collective awakening of humanity. The call to action was clear. I had to share what I had learned, to be a conduit for this critical information, to ignite the spark of remembrance in others. This video, this message, is not just a story. It's a desperate plea, a beacon of hope, and a warning. So how do we break free from this ancient control, and what happens if we don't? The future of humanity, and perhaps even beyond, hinges on the answers to these questions. The ultimate truth, Kale revealed, transcended even the complex manipulations I had just absorbed. The Anunnaki's endgame wasn't just for Earth, nor was it solely about resources or control of a single species. It was part of a much grander and far more terrifying cosmic strategy that affected the very fabric of reality and the evolution of consciousness across the universe. The hidden texts spoke of a universal war, not of planets, but of frequencies, of vibrational states of being. The Anunnaki were not merely colonizers, they were agents, pawns in a much larger interdimensional conflict. The texts exposed an even larger unseen threat that the Anunnaki were either trying to protect against, or worse, were working for. This added another layer of complexity to the narrative, shifting the perceived villains from primary antagonists to secondary players. The Anunnaki weren't the top of the food chain. There was something else, something far more ancient and powerful, pulling the strings, a force of cosmic entropy that sought to stifle expansion, to limit consciousness, and to maintain a state of energetic stagnation across vast sectors of the cosmos. The Anunnaki, with their advanced technology and their mastery of genetic manipulation, had been tasked with creating and managing energy farms, like Earth, to feed this larger unseen entity. Our life force, our emotions, our very souls were being harvested to fuel a cosmic agenda far beyond our comprehension. Yet, amidst this chilling revelation, the texts also illuminated humanity's true, untapped potential. Our DNA, Kale explained, isn't just a blueprint for our physical bodies. It's a key, a complex bio-spiritual antenna capable of receiving and transmitting vast amounts of information, of connecting to the universal consciousness, and of manifesting reality at profound levels. Our consciousness, our ability to love, to create, to empathize, to imagine. These were not mere byproducts of evolution, but superpowers, innate abilities suppressed and dormant. The Anunnaki feared this potential, for a fully awakened humanity would be an unstoppable force, capable of disrupting their carefully constructed energy grid and breaking free from the cosmic prison. Our DNA holds the codes to unlocking abilities we can barely imagine, abilities that could shift the balance of power in the wider universe. Kyle emphasized that humanity stands at a crossroads. We can continue down the path of ignorance and control, remaining unwitting batteries for a cosmic overlord, or we can embrace this knowledge, awaken our dormant potential, and choose a different future. This isn't a passive observation. It's an active choice, a moment of profound decision for every individual. To wake up or to keep sleeping, to remain in the matrix of illusion, or to step into our true power. The text presented this as the ultimate test, not just for humanity, but for the universe itself. A pivotal moment where the forces of expansion and contraction would clash. A stark warning about divergent timelines accompanied this choice. If humanity fails to act, if we collectively choose to remain in ignorance, a negative timeline could be locked in, with irreversible consequences not just for Earth, but for the entire cosmic neighborhood. Kyle explained that timelines are not fixed, they are fluid, influenced by collective consciousness. A collective descent into apathy, fear, and division would solidify a future of perpetual enslavement, while a collective awakening could unlock a future of unimaginable freedom and exponential evolution. The future isn't set, but if we don't act now, we could lock ourselves into a future we don't want, a future where the cosmic harvest continues unimpeded. I began to see specific and observable signs in the modern world that aligned perfectly with the ancient texts and Kale's warnings. The chaos, the division, the constant fear-mongering through media, the erosion of individual freedoms, the feeling that something isn't right. It's all in the texts. These weren't random occurrences. They were symptoms of the ongoing manipulation, designed to keep humanity in a low vibrational state, making us easier to control and more efficient energy producers. The texts provided a framework, a lens through which to understand the seemingly inexplicable events unfolding around us, revealing the hidden patterns of control. The narrator, now fully immersed in this profound understanding, directly appealed to the audience, urging them to question, to research, and to awaken. You are not powerless. Your awareness, your questions, your search for truth, that's where it all begins. Every individual act of seeking truth, of raising one's consciousness, creates a ripple effect, strengthening the collective field of awakening. We are not just spectators in this cosmic drama. We are potential agents of change, each holding a piece of the puzzle, each capable of contributing to the shift. Kyle delivered a powerful, hopeful, yet urgent message about humanity's capacity for greatness and the importance of unity. Kyle said, "Our greatest strength is our ability to love, to connect, to empathize." That's what they feared most. The Anunnaki and their unseen overlords thrive on division, on fear, on isolation. Our innate capacity for unconditional love and unity is the ultimate antidote to their control, the frequency that can shatter their carefully constructed prison. Finally, Kale unveiled a specific symbol from the Sumerian texts, one that had been meticulously suppressed and hidden. It wasn't just ancient art, it's a key, a frequency, a way back to our true selves. This symbol, a complex geometric pattern, was a visual representation of the activated human DNA, a blueprint for awakening dormant potential. It was a resonant frequency, a mnemonic device designed to bypass the conscious mind and stimulate the genetic memory of our true origins and capabilities. To meditate on it, to visualize it, Kale explained, was to begin the process of internal liberation, aligning oneself with the forces of cosmic balance and freedom. My life will never be the same. Once you see behind the curtain, once you glimpse the intricate machinery of cosmic manipulation and human potential, you can't unsee it. The mundane routines that once defined my existence now feel like a thin veil, easily pierced by the weight of this new understanding. Every news headline, every social interaction, every personal struggle is now viewed through a different lens, a lens sharpened by Kale's revelations and the ancient wisdom embedded in those hidden Sumerian texts. The world, as I knew it, has irrevocably shifted, revealing layers of truth and deception I never imagined. This journey, initiated by a strange voice and culminating in profound cosmic truths, has transformed me from a passive observer of history into an active participant in its unfolding. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Kyle made it clear that what I've shared with you today, as mind-bending as it may seem, is merely the beginning. There's so much more these texts reveal, so many more layers to peel back, so many more connections to be made between our ancient past and our precarious present. The Sumerian tablets, especially those Kale allowed me to access, are not just historical artifacts. They are living documents, encoded with warnings, prophecies, and blueprints for humanity's true destiny. My commitment, forged in the crucible of these revelations, is to continue this research, to delve deeper into these suppressed histories, and to bring forth every piece of this cosmic puzzle. The journey of discovery is far from over. In fact, it feels like it has only just truly begun. Therefore, I implore you, don't just believe me. Don't take my word as gospel. Look for yourselves. Question everything. Engage your critical thinking. Activate your intuition, and seek out the truth in every corner of your existence. The Anunnaki's control thrives on apathy, and unquestioning acceptance. Our liberation begins with curiosity, with the courage to challenge established narratives, and with the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Don't be afraid to venture beyond the comfortable confines of conventional wisdom. The path to true understanding is often found in the places deemed conspiracy or myth. This isn't about blind faith. It's about awakened inquiry. We have the power to change things. Kale was unequivocal on this point. Humanity is not a helpless victim. Our collective consciousness, our inherent potential, and our unique position in the cosmic tapestry give us an unparalleled capacity for transformation. But time is not on our side. The window for this collective awakening, for shifting our timeline towards freedom, is finite. The cosmic forces are converging, and the choices we make now, individually and collectively, will determine the trajectory of our species for millennia to come. This isn't a passive waiting game. It's an urgent call to action, a moment for humanity to rise to its true potential. There are other texts, other beings, other timelines. This story is far from over. Kyle alluded to vast libraries of suppressed knowledge, to benevolent and malevolent entities operating within and beyond our dimension, and to the intricate web of parallel realities that our choices are constantly weaving. The Anunnaki narrative, while central, is but one thread in an infinitely complex cosmic tapestry. My encounter with Cal was a doorway, not a destination, opening my eyes to a universe far more expansive and mysterious than I could have ever conceived. The lingering mysteries are countless, each one an invitation to further exploration and understanding. In the next video, I'll show you specific locations mentioned in these texts, sites on Earth that are not merely ancient ruins, but energetic hubs, communication points, or even dormant technologies left behind by the Anunnaki and other cosmic visitors. We'll explore how these sites connect to global ley lines, how their alignments might influence consciousness, and what role they could play in the coming awakening. I'll also delve deeper into the practical steps for awakening that Kale shared. Specific meditative practices, energetic alignments, and ways to decode the hidden messages in our own DNA. These aren't just abstract concepts. They are actionable tools for personal and collective liberation. If you want to understand the true history of humanity and what's coming next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This isn't just entertainment. It's vital information for our collective future. Share this video with anyone you believe is ready to hear it. Anyone who feels that nagging sense that there's more to reality than meets the eye. Engage in the comments. Share your own insights, your own experiences. Let's build a community of conscious explorers, a collective force seeking truth and striving for a better future. You won't want to miss what I uncover next, because what's coming will challenge everything you thought you knew. What if the greatest story ever told isn't in our history books, isn't confined to religious dogma, but waiting to be rediscovered by us right now? What if the key to our future lies not in technological advancement, but in remembering our ancient past and reclaiming our inherent spiritual power? The answers are out there, woven into the fabric of our planet, encoded in our DNA, and hidden in plain sight. It's time for us to find them. It's time for us to remember who we truly are.